Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the show. Yes, I know you don't see Clays. Today, it's just me, but I have special guests on, and I'm so excited to talk to them. This is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. So we're going to be diving into a conversation that's kind of part urgent and most definitely inspiring. And we're going to be talking about the real battle for our kids' hearts and their minds. And it's one that's being fought not just in the classrooms or on social media, but in the stories that they're soaking in every single day. Entertainment is discipling our children, and more often it's more effective than the church, and that is a big problem. And by the way, more so than even their parents, which is truly a problem. But what if we could reclaim it and not just avoid the bad, but create good? Well, our guests are two powerhouse voices who aren't just raising a family, they're raising the alarm, offering a way forward. And from their own parenting journey to creating pro-God media, they're here to talk about tech addiction, spiritual warfare through storytelling, and how families can push back against a culture that wants to erase their authority. So buckle up. This is going to be the kind of conversation that could change how you lead your home. So without further ado, let's bring on our guests. Hello, guys. How are you?
Hi, we're great.
Hey, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. So as we spoke a little bit beforehand, and as I just mentioned, this is so near and dear to my heart because I have, of course, I've grown children, but I have little tiny grandbabies now. It's going to be, as of July, it'll be 4 under 4, and and I'm so grateful that my daughter and son-in-law plan on homeschooling their kids because I'm deeply concerned about the environment that is going on in the public school system and just in our culture as a whole. So I want to talk to you now. They have a new movie out. It's Aria Appleby. Tell me again, Aria Appleby.
Aria Appleton Shines.
Appleton. I guess I'm hungry. I'm thinking Applebee's. I'm sorry. But before we talk about the movie, I would love if you would start by telling us a little bit about what you guys mean about entertainment discipling our kids rather than us and the Bible and church, and what would it look like to reclaim it for good?
Yeah, in the Old Testament, it talks about, when sharing the law and the teachings of Christ and of God when you walk with your kids, like you just, when you walk along the road, when you're at home, you're sharing time with your kids. And so time is a particular factor. Parents who work 60 hours a week and turn their kids over to a public school system, don't get nearly as much time with their kids as they probably did in former generations, when kids actually worked with their parents and maybe participated in the actual jobs that the parents had. Delight and I, though, are both public school products. I was part of the Indiana public school system, which is always first or second in the nation academically. She was part of the Texas school system, which is not.
Opposite of that.
It's the opposite. It's down on the other end, probably just by virtue of being a much larger state, and the statistics are skewed. But Texas is usually 48th in the nation academically. That's not good. And so we have this wide variety of public school potential, for kids, and we're both byproducts. We're not enemies of the public school system, but we do think that the public school system needs some serious reformation. And I'm all about the Department of Education reorganizing to give more control back to the states, because I think that will empower parents more so than they have felt empowered in past generation. But so the time that parents get to spend with their kids is limited because of the lifestyle that Americans are currently living, when some of those families, in order to just survive, are working 2 and 3 jobs, and mom and dad are both working, and the kids are in that school system that in many cases is now ideologically opposed to what they believe in to a large degree. And then they're surprised when their kids come home and we're just talking about it this morning about a good friend and she actually teaches in a school, and her child is coming home with some positionalities and ideas and things that are shocking to us. We're going, oh no, here we go.
Yeah. And she spends more time at school than she gets to spend with her parents, truly. So who is influencing the child at that point? It's all of her peers, the people who are in the same age bracket as her.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of wisdom there.
And then who are the peers being influenced by? Well, they're being influenced by the glut of media that is available to them right now kids are getting 60% of what they watch from YouTube or more. And that is a crazy statistic that's blowing the minds of Disney and Nickelodeon and people like that who are going, oh, wait, what's going on? Everything's moved to YouTube. That's weird. The formats even changed. And so kids are getting their stuff from YouTube. They're getting it from each other. They're getting it from TikTok. And there's there's a major shortage too of material in that space for young people. Less than 15% of what's produced worldwide in media is made for kids and young people and would be considered maybe family friendly. And a far smaller percentage than that is actually something that might have a Christ-centered message or a Christian worldview, or even contain Christian characters or something like that. So the kinds of material that kids have access to they're extremely likely to stumble onto something that they shouldn't be watching, or they're very likely to be watching something that you don't want them watching, or you don't agree with. And so we have a timing problem. We have parents who don't have enough time with their kids on a weekly basis, and they've turned over their parental authority to the state and to a system that now is an enemy to the family to a large degree. And the state's perfectly happy with that, because just from a legal standpoint, based on the system they designed, they consider themselves the parent of your children, and you're just the steward, kind of stewarding them. And if they don't like how you're handling the way you raise your kids, they'll take them away from you. And so that system needs some reformation, in my opinion. So we have a state problem, we have a timing problem, we have a glut of media problem that's right there in front of kids, and now they have a device in every hand. So we really are in a kind of a bad state.
We really are, and it's so they're so smart. Meaning these tech companies, these content producers, I've read that they, for these preschool shows, which is probably the most alarming to me, that these people looked at what's happening, looked at these statistics and these numbers, and have studied the brain, of children and their behaviors, and actually did things where they would have babies or toddlers, watch a program that they want to put out and track how long each scene kept their attention. Yep. And they're designing these shows, like that Coco Melon is probably one of the top ones that comes to mind, that they are, so the scene changes like every, I think it's like 7 seconds or so. So they're actually starting from infants and toddlers and working their way up to what you all are seeing, and of course what I'm seeing as well, with our school age children in the public school system. It is just this mass manipulation and taking over of their brains, of their minds. And, any parent that isn't realizing how terrifying this actually is, needs to look at some of these studies and see some of this research, because it's frightening, and the magnitude and the effect of it. And as you said, the type of programming is not really encouraging and fostering family-minded, moral-minded values that we've all been trying to teach our kids, and obviously in my case grandkids now. So it's really scary, and I love that you guys have really tackled this head on, and the issues are just so many that we need to tackle. But it's kind of wild how sort of simple the solution is, right? Just to make that shift, because we're looking at tech addiction with kids. Can you talk a little bit about what you're observing? And I know you touched on some of it there, but what kinds of things are you seeing in the families today? Is there a growing divide between parents and their children? I probably most particularly like the teenage children.
Yeah, so I have a 3-year-old and I have a 12-year-old, and the 3-year-old, we had to address what you were just talking about those kid little preschool shows, and going, okay, well, this is clearly just brainwashing you and training your brain to be the ADHD generation. Like, it's not helping anything. And so we have been battling him, because, we're guilty too. When we need to work, we work at home. Sometimes they hand the iPad over. And if I'm not paying attention, he knows how to work that thing and get to the things he's not supposed to watch. And so for us, it's hard because we know better. And so we do try to tell ourselves, just take him outside, just jump on the trampoline, just go on a walk, because all he needs is a minute with us. I mean, he doesn't need like half of just play, right? But we do have to make a sacrifice and prioritize in the moment. So it's down there at 3. Our 12-year-old's pretty good now, but I have been hearing horror stories from my friends with teenagers and adult children with the addiction factor. And I mean, if you hand over a device to a teen and you don't have clear boundaries and clear consequences for what happens if they break those boundaries, well, you're setting yourself up for failure. You know, you might as well just hand your child over and be like, well, I tried my best. I'm sorry. Because they're not ready. Even the adult children are having issues. I mean, we have a friend who the son had a major addiction to what he was seeing on the screen when he was 16, and now he's 24. And it's only gotten worse because it wasn't really addressed and it wasn't corrected. And sometimes you have to make really bold choices and just take it away. Be like, I'm sorry, I gave you that phone when you were 14. I thought you were ready. Clearly you're not. Now you're 16. You don't get it again until you actually graduate, you know? And it's hard if you're sending your kids to public school or private school where everyone has a phone, because they all do. It's easier as a home, you know.
Go ahead.
Well, it's just it's easier as a homeschool mom because, you know, as a homeschool mom, I'm going, okay, well, the kids you are hanging out with, their parents have the same sort of standards that we do. You know, I'm getting to kind of pick and choose and curate what my child is who she's really interacting with. So it's easier on the homeschool front. There's still some struggles, but not as much as if you're actually sending your kid to school.
Yeah. And you touched on a little earlier that, you know, some of the solution or counter to that, in particular for families who aren't, for, you know, whatever their reasons are, they're not able to homeschool that they need, or they just simply prefer the public school environment. You know, no judgment whatsoever on what anyone chooses to do, but they're still seeing more so than anyone else probably those struggles that you were just talking about. And you guys have some, you know, great alternatives for combating that overload. So you advocate for creating media that's pro-God, not just clean. So what differences does that perspective bring to the content that you create?
Well, I think that pro-God to us just represents that the people who make that media keep God in mind. They are kind of they're not sanitizing it. They're just, I believe in the idea that sanctified people who are seeking God, people who are attempting to live in a moral space, if that same person sets out to make media or to do anything at all, well, everything they do is going to be affected by that concept, that positionality. Obviously, people can sit and write, and I write occasionally, and I'm surprised what I write. You know, if you're just being really organic and honest, it just comes out. But even still, you might be able to write something that might be less savory for kids. You put it on paper and you go, oh, okay. But if you're looking at it from a logical view and a Christian worldview and a moral position, you could look at it and go, well, I don't think kids are ready for that. I don't think they're going to understand that. So I'm not going to, we won't make that and put that out there in the space for them. So I do believe that who we are as a people and who we are in our hearts, as a man thinks in his heart, so he is. And as a direct byproduct of that person is going to create probably a more savory product for families and kids and things like that. Obviously, will be affected by the belief system, and so that's first things first. The other factor that you brought up is also, and Delightha said this too, people need to make a bold choice about how they interact. Some families do probably have enough going on in their circumstance, and they could, if they would, make a major change and homeschool or to move. You know, it's like sometimes just moving from one school to another, if they're in public or private, could make the difference because of the culture of that particular school or something might make a difference. Some parents need to downsize maybe in their own lifestyle in order to create time with their kids where they go, you know what, we don't need this ginormous house, or we don't need 3 cars, or we don't need some of the things that we may be hanging on to from a lifestyle standpoint. And I'm working 3 jobs to try to afford all of this stuff. And so some families may need to do some of that downsizing in order to create the time. And parents who do have kids in public school, I think need to be just as intentional, probably more intentional than homeschool parents. Homeschool parents spend a fair amount of time kind of programming the day and what we're going to do and who's going to be doing what and what material we're working through uh, and and then when we're playing versus when we're studying and so we have the ability to affect that more. Parents who have kids in public school need to look at that, get involved in the school board and the PTA, and make sure they're having an influence on what's being taught in those spaces and what's being shared in those spaces, because that's your right. It's a public space. It's a public school. You have a right to get in there and make an impact on and have a voice in that space. So I think parents ought to do that, and then be very intentional about those few hours in an evening and a weekend that you do get to spend with your kids, where you do sit and talk to them about what's going on in the world and what we believe, and getting more involved in talking to them, asking questions. And then particularly regarding media, talking about what you're watching, because we're in this position too. We've literally gone, like all of you, gone to the movie before with your kids, and then you're hoping, you look at it in the trailer and all this, you're like, oh, this looks pretty good. This is rated for families or whatever. And then you watch it and you go, oh, great. Now I have to talk to my 9-year-old about this particular subject that they really shouldn't be talking about until they're, quite a bit older. And
we were getting tired of doing that. We were tired of going, okay, I've looked it up online. I've done all the reviews. I've seen it. This is going to be great. And if it's a TV show, often it'd be fine. And then in episode 6, bam, something would get in there where you're like, no, I didn't see this thing. Or, a movie will go and then they'll put it in the credit crawl. You're like, we made it through the whole movie and you did this to me. And so I got tired. I got fed up. And so, we've done something that is proactive, and we've created a movie where we are giving parents the opportunity to still have a discussion with your kids, but about things you want to talk about. Like, adoption. Let's talk about adoption. That's a beautiful thing. Or let's talk about dying to self. Let's talk about that, please. And so we've created a little movie that has lovely themes throughout it that are relevant. We have anti-bullying and cyberbullying in the movie, and we've created a parent and leaders guide that accompanies the film so that parents can have good conversations about topics that really matter and that are relevant.
Yeah, because some parents don't feel comfortable right now. For instance, I went to seminary. I'm a preacher's kid. I studied Bible. I've worked for the church a little bit over the years. I feel more prepared if my kid sits down and says, hey, I've got some questions, or you discover your kid's being emo and you want to intervene. And I feel a little more prepared probably than some parents, just because of my upbringing and my education. And so we knew that just through talking to our own friends, it's like not everyone feels that prepared. They don't know what scripture to refer to. They don't know how to talk to their kids in some cases about a biblical idea, contrasting what's going on in the world. And so the Leader's Guide is for that, just as a tool to try to help support parents, because it's going to happen anyway. I mean, you're going to be watching something that's in the mainstream on a streamer, and you're going to end up in these conversations anyway. So why not put something in the playlist that everybody's going to enjoy. What we did is kind of cotton candy meets nutrition, because it's in a package that's a little unfamiliar to people, because most people making faith and family friendly content don't put these types of stories into a comedy, and particularly into a satire, which is what we did. And so it's a little unfamiliar to people, but it's what is going on out there. And it's one reason that we see so much of this glut being so impactful on the kids, because the quality and the content that they're getting is often fun, musical, comedy. Right. It's things that kids want to watch. It's that kind of thing. When we start looking into like the faith-based and family market, there's very little of that. It's high drama and it's very stoic and serious. And kids are not going to just sit there with you and watch most of these things. I didn't want to watch some of it when I was in my 20s, because my parents were putting on movies that were made by some very well-known people in the faith-based space. No offense to them, but they're trying to show this stuff at church, and they're asking me, they're like, hey, what'd you think about that movie that we showed at church? And I'm going, And as a guy interested in film and the arts, I was like, I don't think it's that good. Like, it's not a good quality product, and it's got bad acting, and the script is clunky. God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and the simple things to shame those that are. So I was giving God credit because he's using that stuff, and I know he does, but it's not affecting kids and young people because they're not watching that. They're not paying attention. And so we were very interested in the kid and young adult space because we're just kind of goofy kids ourselves, and have always loved kids movies. And so we're hopeful that that what we're doing will help inspire some out of the box thinking on the part of people who are making that type of material for families, and that it'll help families have that conversation. And my dad was great at that. My dad was pretty incredible rock star public pulpit minister who, if you got to watch a clip from Braveheart at church, we were all like, we're watching a movie, Hollywood has come to church this morning. And that was always fun. And my dad was good at taking the heart out of a mainstream movie and then pull the theme out and give it to us and make a biblical connection or a godly connection to that theme. He was very good at that. And so we are hoping that we'll inspire other filmmakers and other people and continue ourselves to be inspired to take the lead from Jesus himself, who was this epic storyteller who told stories, parables that contain truth, right? It's a parable is, for all intents and purposes, and I risk saying this, it's a little piece of fiction, but it's true. You could say that some of those things are fairy tales. Are they true though? Yes. Does it have a truth in it? Yes. It's intended to teach you something, and film can be used that way. It is happening broadly, like we're talking about, preschool programming. It's been happening that way in Hollywood and from people in high places for a long time. It's just that the church has not been involved. They're just turned over their authority and their sovereignty to these organizations to a large degree. I was reading the other day that a couple of our very well-known billionaires who are investing heavily in kids' cartoons, and they're doing this because I don't think it's because they nefariously want to influence the kids towards a particular ideology necessarily, but they do want to influence those kids to buy their products for the next 40 years. And so they are doing that. And so I don't know that all of it's particularly nefarious, but some of it is, and it when you see it. And you look at it and go, oh, wait a minute, that's pure evil right there. I don't, this, there's a little difference. So we're getting a little of both. We need to be vigilant. We need to be awake. We need to wake up and pay attention to what's going on. So we're hoping what we're doing will at least stimulate that and help people.
Well, I especially love what you're doing. Comedy and satire is really my home. That's my lane. When I'm not doing podcast stuff, I'm doing comedy skits and all of those things. And it's usually, culture and also politics related. But, I felt the same thing that you guys did. Like, you're getting all of this information. Everybody is telling the news. Everybody is a podcaster now. Everybody is an independent media person now. And everybody is delivering the same news, the same headlines, the same stories, the same everything, high drama, tension, everybody's angry. And, I love to laugh. Comedy is just my whole life. That's always been my happy place, literally and figuratively, I guess. So and I agree with you fully. What you're doing is you're bringing this to children in the way that they relate best to. They're not watching. They don't care about soap opera style, anything. They make them laugh, keep them entertained, and give them that wholesome messaging that we're all craving. And I would say the only thing different as of late, and I mean by the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years, I may be exaggerating, I may be underestimating, is that we'll say at least the last few years that they are less sneaky about it. They are so open now, and I weirdly thank them for doing that, because you can't miss it now. There's still some stuff that they sneak in there, and that you don't realize it until you're watching. You're like, something doesn't feel right with this program. Like, what is it? But now they're so blatant with their messaging and their culture, ideas, and all of those things. So that thankfully is in its weird way a good thing, because you can spot it and boot it and get it out of your kids' lives as best as possible. You gave some great suggestions for parents who are like just waking up to all of this, what's happening in media and what our children are watching, and the lack of control that they have. Before we talk a little more fully about the movie, like I promised, guys, I promised we would be talking about this movie. I just want to ask you quickly if you could give like a few, I don't know, practical first steps for parents who are just realizing what's going on, like how they can engage proactively. And I'm going to offer the first one, watch their movies. Start there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So for me, it depends on where your kids are. So with my 3-year-old, he has discovered YouTube, and fortunately there is YouTube Kids, and you can go in and you can control the exact videos that he will watch. And so I went in and I was like, what are the VBS songs? What are the, because there are VBS programs out there like with puppets and stuff. And so we put that on there, but he also likes race cars and he also likes motorcycles. So I got to select all of those things, which is great for the littles. The older ones are harder because you might be able to control a little bit about what they see, but the commercials come on and the commercials have no filter, right? And so you're like, oh, what? Okay, they just presented that to my child. Thanks everybody. And so for the olders, for me, I draw hard lines. And so, we don't do like my daughter, she's 12. She does not have a phone. She does have a tablet and she has Wi-Fi. But guess what? I control the Wi-Fi. So if she does something truly naughty, which she doesn't, I can turn the Wi-Fi off. I can change the password. And so that's easy for her there. And for your teens, so I just say be the counterculture. And so just because they think they need a phone doesn't mean they need the phone. Oh, I need to go jump off that cliff right now, Mom. No, you actually don't. Sorry, your brain's not fully formed. I'm going to be your mom. You just have to draw hard lines and say no to this, no to this, no to this, or know your child and know kind of where they are. But you have to also present something positive, right? That's a lot of negative. No. So what's a positive? So I like a lot of the shows that are on Angel Studios. There's Wing Feather Saga and there's Studio C. I love Studio C. It's clean Saturday Night Live sort of skits. And so that's fun. Find other things like Little Littles. I like Bluey. I mean, God is not presented in Bluey, but at least it's positive and fun. So find things that the kids will enjoy that you approve of and go maybe start right there. And that's a lot to filter through all of these things. Yeah. I think that's a lot.
We also have some hard rules around time of day, when it's okay to be on a device. You're not allowed to just have a device and just be on it all day long. That's not how that works. It shouldn't be that way in any home. And if parents are doing that and parents are just willy-nilly on their phone all day long or on their device all day long, justifying that, well, I need it for work. And half the time you're just sitting there doom scrolling, you probably got to check yourself and establish some household rules for mom and dad about their devices. Like, we don't do devices at the dinner table. We have a few just nominal rules everybody kind of understands, but put some things into play like that for the parents. And obviously parents who do use devices and things like that for work, you can have a different rule for yourself than you have for your kids, and the kids have to accept that and go, well, mom and dad have to work. I need to be at my computer to do my job or to do what I'm doing for this amount of time a day. But, and then have some rules around the kids. I made up an arbitrary rule a year ago for Maxwell. He's 3, and he was like, well, I want to get on your phone. And it just came out of my mouth one day. I was like, it's after 6:30. And he doesn't even know what that means. But in our house, during a day, if he asks to get on my phone, I might let him do that to watch YouTube Kids or something for a few minutes during a day, but not all day long. He might have 15 or 20 minutes of that type of interaction with my device. But then I have this arbitrary, it's after 6:30. That sounded good to me. And I think that, you have to come up with what kind of seems sensible to you and your house, and then hold that line. And now, that's just how it goes. He doesn't know what it means really, but he accepts it and he just goes, oh, okay, it's after 6:30. And we go play with blocks, or we go do something else. And and as a dad, I have to be intentional. Like Delitha said earlier, I've got to, if he's tapped me on the shoulder twice in a day and said, hey, I want to do this, or would you do this with me? I just stop what I'm doing. No matter how important that is to me, I just generally go, this can wait. And I'll go jump on the trampoline for 3 minutes and then come back and get back to work. And that's sufficient for him. But yeah, we have some kind of hard lines for ourselves. We've drawn some hard lines for them. And if you haven't done the research on the potential EMF dangers for kids from radiation to Bluetooth to all of this, you should go check that out. You should look into that. It's going to give you pause and make you go, oh, well, maybe we should put some more strict rules in place around how much time we spend on these things.
The final thing I would say is create a box or an area where all the devices go. So when it's like, oh, it's 8:30 and this is our cutoff time, everybody, all the devices go there. That's where they charge, that sort of thing. And then they know when they're allowed to get back on it. So if you're a homeschool mom, you're like, okay, well, once school's over tomorrow and you've had a good attitude, then you can get it back. But make it a privilege to get that device back out of that area. Some people need a box that they can lock up, because I have had some students in the past who've confessed to me, yeah, my mom tells me I'm not supposed to get on the iPad after 8, but as soon as she goes to sleep, I just get on it. Oh, okay. Well, you're the naughty one. You need a lot of boundaries.
Yes.
So you need to know your kids.
Yeah. We also recommend to people that if some families might want to consider a detox from devices for a minute to gauge your own addiction. And so parents sometimes need to do that. They may need to go, you know what, let's do 2 weeks off and everybody shuts down for 2 weeks. We go device free for 2 weeks and see who's the most addicted and see who has the biggest problem. Those types of 2-week or 30-day detoxes could be really helpful, but they can have a reciprocal problematic reaction where people start to feel ashamed about device usage. Parents feel guilty sitting down to check their email. It's like some of that could be dangerous to us or have a kind of a contraction expansion problem around shame, and we don't want that. You don't want to create the essence of like a bulimia versus anorexia problem for yourself regarding your device usage. You don't want to do that, and so we don't shame people. We don't shame ourselves, about this. Right. We just go, hey, let's just have some practical ways to handle this. And then some parents who may want to do the detox, but for a minute to gauge where they are as a family. Some families may not need to do that. They may have some reasonable rules in place. The theme of our movie is make good. That's it. Let's make good. Let's make good movies. That was our dream. Let's make a good movie. It doesn't have to be perfect, but let's make a good one. And let's make sure that it has the goodness of God in it. Let's put that in there. And then from a family standpoint, let's look at our device usage. And instead of going cold turkey to be like, oh no, we have all these really strict rules that kids might be tempted to rebel against, right? Because that's the essence of the law. Paul said that about the law, that as soon as the law came, it inspired in me every desire to break the rules. And we see that in kids all the time. So why would we then create all these really super strict rules around it and not be reasonable? It also begs a question about, well, I assume that this tech is all evil, it's all bad, and I think that is short-sighted. Where we as the people of God ought to look at that and go, no, we could redeem this. We can actually take this technology and use it for good. And so some families need to do that. They need to look at it and go, hey, what's maybe a 30-day project we could do as a family to repurpose our Facebook pages or set up a Give Send to Go on behalf of a friend or a missionary or somebody we know that's sick? Or can we start some sort of family project that supports widows and orphans? Anything that we could do as a family. And then that is what you do for your tech time. It's like, well, we're not going to sit and just surf YouTube today, but we are going to get online and we're going to shoot a video. We're going to start a family podcast or a vlog. We're going to put something together that actually blesses people, blesses the world, takes technology and puts it into play for good. And so that's our other recommendation to people, that's the proactive part. If what we sit and dwell upon and what we think about is what we create in our lives. And if we sit and just think, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. Oh, shame on you for getting on your phone. We're going to just create more of that for our kids and ourselves. We don't want that. So let's be proactive and flip the script and just go, no, what can we do that's useful? What can we do that's good? Whatever is good, lovely, useful, excellent, praiseworthy. Think on those things and apply Philippians chapter 4 to your use of technology in your house.
I love all of that so much. Both of you hit on every factual, actual thing that I think we all, I shouldn't generalize, but I'm going to generalize, that we're all experiencing, including the shame factor. If you're on your phone, you're feeling like you're being judged. So you're feeling guilty. You feel like, and I know that's an aspect for me, and I don't even have small children in the house. But doing all of the things that I do, it's all media based. It's all tech based. That phone, I'm surprised my hand isn't, permanently in the claw shape from holding the phone. It's crazy, and I'm aware of it, and it instills that sense of guilt that, and I love that perspective shift. And I think, if you're feeling that shame and that guilt for, being on your phone when your kids are, playing on the floor in front of you, or you're on your phone while your kids are on their tablet and all of those things, that little bit of a perspective shift on it, I think really will mobilize parents, and just whether you have little kids or big kids, it kind of motivates you. And I love the suggestions and ideas. Absolutely brilliant. And I think that just shifts everything. That was wonderful. Now, officially, I want to talk about this movie. Your lead actress there, she is absolutely adorable and talented. So I want you just to walk me through.
Yeah, so I think Nathan should probably start the story because I do, but I'll start it anyway. Okay, so
I'll interject.
Okay, great. I was an actress. That is how I made my living in my early 20s, and late 20s and early 30s. And then I had a child. I had my first child, Aurora. And when I had her, I went back to the theater because that's what I knew to do. And that first show back, I felt so guilty, speaking of guilt, but I felt guilt being away from her for hours during the day, and I just did not have a good time. And I decided that was the last show I was going to do for a while, and I was going to be a mom, and that was my priority. And so I made that decision, and kind of simultaneously, Nathan had a moment.
Yeah, about the same time, I had been in the media arts and in the film industry space. We'd done a bunch of things at that point. We designed Capernaum Studios and Gardens, where they shot the Chosen seasons 1 through 3. I had produced 3 features with friends. I'd done a bunch of short films. I'd worked as an art director. I'd worked as an actor. And I had just had this variety of artistic experiences for over a decade. And then right about that point, when she made that shift, the Lord grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, sort of, and I was like, what? And I was feeling rather cynical about some of what I'd been involved in. I had just come off of a feature that really was just a mainstream feature. I was working as a producer, and it just beat me up psychologically and spiritually. Like, I came off of it and I was just kind of tired and fatigued. And I want my life to serve God in the way that it can through what I do. But I really wasn't feeling gratified. And when I got to the core of, like, why do I not feel gratified? It was like, well, what we just made is pretty much worthless and has no redeeming quality, no redeeming value. And one of the things that's important to me is mission, and helps drive me. I'm not motivated by much except mission and purpose. And so I kind of got grabbed by the scruff of the neck. It's like, hey, you need to straighten yourself out. And when I got really serious before the Lord, I was just like, what do you want? I got, and those of you who pray or have had this type of experience will understand what I'm talking about. But it became very clear to me in a conversation with the Lord that I needed to sell my house. I needed to sell a truck. And that was terrifying to me, because it put me on my heels. And as a preacher's kid, I was like, oh God, please don't put me in a pulpit. I don't want to, please don't make me do what my dad was doing. I got into that headspace, and we started talking, and she, being who she is, just said, let's go. What are we doing? And I was like, I don't know, but we're selling the house. We're selling the truck. We just had a baby. It's a very weird time to do that. It felt very strange and out of place, sort of. But on the flip side of that, after kind of praying and thinking about what to do, where to go from here, do I need to get out of the arts and out of the film space? What do I need to do? Do I need to just go get a normal job, And but we were clearly sent back. Irrespective of one another, I came to her, said, hey, I've been thinking about this. She said, stop. I know, we're going to make a movie. And so we kind of got sent back into the space, but with more of a mission. And that was, let's go back into the space. Let's make something, but let's keep God in mind. Let's make sure that what we're doing has a heart and a mission, and it's not just flippant or willy-nilly, or it's not ambitiously motivated. It's motivated for a kingdom purpose. And that was what we came back to. And so that's how we got in. But the getting to your question, which is Sarah Grace Prejean, our lead actor, she's a byproduct of Delitha's voice studio. And Delitha ended up just one afternoon sitting down at the laptop and started cranking out what became this script. And as we discussed how and who and all of that, Sarah Grace became the answer to our casting question.
Yeah, and so she, and along with the actor Stephen Newton, who plays Ty, they were both in the last show I did. And so we had this great kid cast. I did a lot of children's theater, and they were these talented actors, and I taught them both voice lessons through that theater. And I just, I didn't have them in mind when I was writing it. I didn't have anyone in mind. I had one person in mind that I thought would play the lead. And then when I saw her after it was written, she had aged up. She was, she looked like a teenager, even though she was like 12. And so we just opened up the casting call to kids that I knew that were professional actors in the area, and they came in, and those kids were just the perfect answer to the casting. Sarah has such a great voice. She's such a tremendous talent, and she's just got that snarky attitude that we were kind of looking for. And she's so perfect for it.
She was, interestingly, as it should be, the last kid to actually audition. Mm-hmm. We'd had a long audition day. After several rounds of auditions, looking who's going to play Arya Apthon, because it has to be very specific kind of snark and a very specific kind of attitude, who can show both the shadow side of that character, and we also believe the narration of that story and the end of that story, that she's gone through a transformation. Like, we believe that, she's turned over a new leaf, and so she had to be able to do both. That's a tricky thing for a 10-year-old, and it's funny because she does truly, I think, have a soft, gooey center, but she does have a rather sharp edge on her at 10 years old, and is super smart. And when she came in and auditioned, I looked her in the eyes and I saw that snarky old soul down in there who was looking back and who had sung her heart out for us. I looked at Delitha, I was like, that's her. I was like, that is her. So,
I love that. I love that you just knew. Like, they always say that, right? When you know, and you guys knew that was your girl right there. I love that. That is terrific. So how long did it take from conception to having it in front of us? It's on Amazon Prime, correct?
Yes, it's on Prime Video. Absolutely.
Prime Video. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can buy or rent it. And then we also have a soundtrack because it is a musical. And so you can find the soundtrack on Amazon Music, iTunes Music right now. Yeah.
And it took a lot longer than we thought it was going to take. It was kind of cool, though. From inception to distribution at this point, it has taken almost 10 years. We won the ICVM Gold Crown Award last year for Best Feature Comedy. And we were also nominated for Best Picture at ICVM next to Jesus Revolution and Sound of Freedom. And one of our actors, Julie K. Rhodes, opened the program when we were at ICVM, and she said, "Check it out. You guys are nominated for Best Picture." And she said, "Next to Sound of Freedom." And I looked at her and I said, "Well, that's ironic. It took Sound of Freedom 10 years to get made, and that's approximately what it took us to get out to." So we felt like that was kind of a God wink for us. Like, yes. It was like, hey, it's okay. They had a lot of money and some big stars, and you didn't have that. You had 5 loaves and 2 fish and an original idea, and you're both here at the same time. And so that was helpful for us, but it took about 60 days to shoot the movie with a bunch of kids who were non-union kids across evenings, weekends, Christmas break, spring break, stuff like that. It took from Christmas to spring break to get everything in the can. And then we had about a year of initial post-production. We went to festival probably too early because I wasn't really done with it, but we had a reasonable festival cut of the movie. We went to several faith and family festivals. We got rejected by some kind of mainstream kid festivals. We got a nasty letter from a mainstream kid festival who said, "How dare you try to influence children?" And we were like, "Oh, wow.
To love Jesus. How dare you?
How dare you?" And so we had some very interesting festival experiences at that point. And then in 2019, we did our last festival of that cycle at Content Media in Texas. And and I couldn't, and I'd had some offers for distribution at that point, but I couldn't turn loose of it. And when I got honest with myself about why, as a filmmaker, I just said, "You're not finished. You're not done with it. So you have something else you want to do." I did have a list of about 100 things I wanted to fix, just little things that were little sacred cows for me that were going to help me sleep better at night. And so I set out on a mission to do that. That was October 2019. It took until February 2020 to kind of get organized for that second post, and we put it back in post, and I had it open on a timeline to start fixing it March 21st of 2020, when the pandemic, like, everybody locked down. And I went, what? I was like, no. And instead of using that season like to hunker down and be at home and edit, we had our legs knocked out from under us financially. And so we had to pivot, and it took another 2 years to get through post. So I printed the master in September 22, and we went back to festival. And that's when but at that point we had a better product. I was happy. I had finally abandoned it the way you're supposed to. They say films are never finished. They're only abandoned. And that is true. That you just get to a point where, like, okay, I can sleep at night. I think I'm done. And so we moved on and went to content media again. They thankfully brought us back through for another cycle. We ended up at Christian Worldview, nominated for Best Picture, and several other festivals. And but then we had to make a decision after a bunch of kind of ho-hum offers from distributors that weren't. There were offers that were untenable. They were offers that were unfair. They were offers that were untransparent or very unclear. Some of the offers were downright criminal, and we got to a point where, like, I don't think we can go this direction. And I nearly signed a distribution contract about 7 or 8 months ago and got my hand slapped. And I was like, okay, Lord, not that. Then what? And so as soon as we decided to self-distribute through Prime Video, we picked up some momentum again. And the opportunity to take it out, some money for marketing, it was like the ship began to sail again at that point. We went, okay, this is intended to, we're soft releasing this through.
We're homeschooling her.
We're homeschooling the movie. That's what we're doing.
There you go. I love that. I especially love and I envy your patience and, of course, your perseverance with this and your faith in what you guys had created, because that is a long journey. And by the way, not terribly different from writing books and that whole process. As an author, I can tell you that it is. Mm-hmm. It's all of that. Didn't do any of. I never do any conventions and things like that, or festivals, which would be, I guess, the equivalent of the film festivals and all of that. But so much respect and admiration for the process that you guys went through. And of course, dealing with everything that you're dealing with at home, so you have this work life that you're working through. And in the meanwhile, home life, which of course talks finances and crosses over into that work life big time. So huge kudos to both of you for sticking with this and putting out something that's really very special. And I so look forward to seeing what else you guys are going to be putting out in the future. I have a feeling it's going to be just more great things. I'm putting in a personal request for, listen, I've been asking somebody to do just a really good quality sitcom. I was pushing for my own sitcom. Listen, I don't think that's going to happen.
I have one.
Thank you.
I have one. Yeah, I have a part for you too if you want it. Like,
of course I do. Heck yeah.
It's a comedy.
Yes,
it's a sitcom.
That's my dream. So
okay.
Yes, and so there we go. Yeah, I see. We put it out there, and now we have to make it happen. Oh, I can't thank you both enough for coming on. Your inspiration, your motivation, and your information has been just, I think, so invaluable to parents. And of course, the movie, I'm so excited to be sharing info about that for people to show. Your kids get to watch something that you're not going to be cringing about. How exciting is that for parents in this day and age, right? If you could tell everybody where to find you guys, what you have coming up next, tell them, of course, one more time, where to find the movie, where they can rent it, download it, buy it, all of the good things, and the soundtrack. So give them all that info one last time.
So if you can only remember one thing, remember ariaappleton.com, A-R-I-A, apple, like you eat it, and then ton, T-O-N, ariaappleton.com, because that'll get you everywhere you need to go. But if you can remember more, or if it's in the show notes, then also go to Prime Video and look up Aria Appleton. That's all you have to type for it to come up. You can buy it or rent it. If you're there on the Amazon portal, wherever you are, then the soundtrack will come up as well, and you can purchase that. Or you can go to iTunes or Apple Music for that. We also have a parent and leaders guide that I briefly mentioned. And this is a tool for you, for parents, for youth leaders. It's great conversation starters. And there's worksheets for the little so that they can do little dot to dots and that sort of thing while they're listening to the conversations with you and the bigs. And so that you can find at givesendgo.com/Aria Appleton. And you can give a penny or give more. Whatever you give, you'll get the leader and youth, the parent and leaders guide.
We're also adding to that some suggestions about, instead of, you might need to do a 30-day detox from tech, but we're also suggesting a make good challenge that we're going to provide along with that. If you go to Give Send Go and do that gives you some ideas about some things you can do at home and some challenges and how to utilize that, how to take tech and use it for good, like we were talking about earlier. And
then we would love to connect with everyone on social media. So Aria Appleton has her own page, it's the film, on Instagram and Facebook, TikTok. And then we also have a YouTube page, which is, the YouTube page is Grafted Studios, which is our production company. But if you type in Aria Appleton or Aria Appleton Shines, things will pop up. And we would love for people to like our YouTube page and then just connect with us.
Yeah, and in terms of what's next, we have, like you said, it's funny, one of our next projects that we're working on is another kind of satirical episodic show that's more adult friendly. It's obviously still within the bounds of what we're writing, but it's not specifically for kids. But we also have another kids series that's completely written that is more like high concept, high intelligence kids television that we've seen in the last decade, from Malcolm in the Middle to Gordimer Gibbons and some shows of that style. So we have one that does have more of a biblical, ideological backdrop. And so that one's ready to go. We'd really like to do that. So those are kind of in the works, in the pipeline. This summer, we're off for this podcast tour that we're participating in now. And August 2nd through the 9th, I am directing film camp with The Chosen at Camp Hoblitzel, which is where the sets are. If you're following the TV series The Chosen. And so if you've got kids between the age of 13 and 23, and they're interested in film, musical theater, or acting for camera, they can go through that camp, and it is a fantastic camp. Kirk B. Waller, who plays Gaius on The Chosen, is our acting for camera instructor, along with me and Delitha. I'm directing the film unit on the whole. Delitha's directing music for the musical theater side of camp, and BJ Foreman, who's the art department coordinator for The Chosen, is directing a musical theater camp within that camp as well. It's a really cool teens and young adults.
It's fun. There's horseback riding and zip lining.
Yeah.
It's just like a true summer camp.
Camp Hoblitzel is an epic 1,500-acre summer camp. Super cool place. Plus, they get to meet cast and crew of The Chosen, and that's a nifty experience for everybody. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't, in my whole adult life, I don't think I've ever said, gee, I wish I could be a kid again, until now.
Yeah.
Because that sounds so amazing. That was the first and only time ever that I'll say, gosh, I would love to be a kid again, because I would be there so fast. That sounds absolutely amazing. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you both again so much for coming on the show and sharing all of this. Your next project, you guys have an open invite. Come back anytime, share whatever you have going on. I would love that so much. And it's been so great talking with you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise. We've loved it, and we appreciate being here with you today.
Thank you. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, you got so much information out of that. I got so much information out of that. I'm going to try and sneak into that camp. Do you think anybody will notice? I've lost some weight. I look kind of short. I might fit in there. It's worth a try.
Let's go. Come on down.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for watching. All of that information will be in the show notes, so you'll be able to find everything with just a couple of clicks of your mouse. Well, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the musical auditions at Wielder K-12 Fine Arts Academy. This is the audition that'll finally put me, Aria Appleton, on the map. I can't believe my best friend's going to be the star of the musical.
the lead in your musical gets a part in ours.
Hi, Aria. How are you? Great. She must be really talented to get the lead.
Do you know what you're gonna do?
Oh, yeah. Someone saw a video of me singing online and now they want me to be on TV. That sounds so cool. Almost unbelievable.
A two-week cruise.
What about me, Mom?
My family agreed to keep you while your mom was gone.
I hear they don't go to the grocery store and they hunt and grow their own food. Naomi doesn't have a website or a blog. I don't think she even has a phone.
Speaking of phones, the Battlefields wanted me to leave yours here at the house.
You believe what's happening to my life?
There's always next year.
There's always this year, if you got a plan.
Good evening, young man. Is your dad home? So tell me what this is about, officer. First of all, it's detective.
Aria, do you have any idea what you've done this time?
Naomi, I can explain.
No, we're going home. We love that family.
They're
so stupid.
I've got your back.
My back?
Yeah, that's what friends do.
Can I make good? Can I make good? Can you make some good out of me? Stepping on out of the shadows, I'll shine for the whole world to see. Can you make good? Can you make good? Can you make some good out of me?
Oh, I'll bring my moves. Maybe bring something a bit better.